Welcome to Global Citizen Life. On the podcast today, we have Nathaly Salas, global real estate expert and SEO of Unicorn Properties, originally from Peru and raised in Madrid, Spain. With a strong base in Chicago since 2005 and Mexico since 2020, she's established herself as a trusted figure in the industry. Combining her tech background with a passion for construction and design, Nathaly offers innovative solutions to international real estate challenges. She specializes in prop tech, AI, eco living, making her a driving force for positive change in the industry. With a vast network of 89,000 members and spanning 24 countries, her mission is to empower local realtors to become global agents and revolutionize the international real estate landscape. Well, thank you very much for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sally. I was looking forward to it.
So quite a bit of a diverse background, which makes it perfect for the show. So born in Peru, raised in Madrid and living in Chicago. So at what age did you move to Madrid and then relocate to Chicago?
I was 5 and it was in the 80s. And the reason we left was Peru had a lot of issues back then, political issues and terrorism and all that crazy stuff that happened, in South America. So my dad got an opportunity to work in Spain and he moved us all through his work.
Oh, great. And so how many years did you spend in Spain and how or why did you then go to the United States?
Well, I was very little, so yeah. So wherever my dad went, we had to go, right? So
Okay.
went for his work. We were there about 6 years, so all my elementary school was there. And after that, my dad got transferred back to Peru because back when they were laying out all the networks, my dad is a telecommunications engineer. He was responsible for a lot of that. So we were back to South America, and I did high school there. So
Okay.
so I was still little.
Yes. Okay. And then, so how did the United States come about?
Same thing, my dad. Same thing. As I was going to high school, entering the university in Peru, which I was planning to stay there, communications. And my first year was engineering because my dad is an engineer, and engineer parents are like, you should be an engineer. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be an engineer, but I did 1 year, so failed badly. But I learned so much, on the technology side of things. But then I went to communications, and that's a career I kind of followed when I came to the US. My dad moved here, got transferred here in 2005. So I was 21 back then, 2021. And it was the beginning of, my years as an adult. And it was good, having the transition of my parents, but then ended up moving out of the country in 2-3 years after that because they didn't like the winter in Chicago. So I was like, okay, now we're here with my sister. And then after that, I stayed in Chicago for a long time. Since 2005, I've been here. This is kind of the home base. And then after that, I was exploring to see where I would like to go in other cities within the US. But Chicago has almost everything that you need if you're a professional, in your 20s. So I had a reason to move out. I had a job after a job, and I was in technology. So I stay here, and I didn't find a why to leave until the pandemic came, and I was like, finally, a reason to maybe like work remotely full time, because I was working half remotely, and it was very helpful to have that remote. Even before pandemic, it was like maybe 3 days a week I had to be in the office, but Thursday and Friday I will have those 2 days to work remotely, and I will travel from Wednesday night to Sunday to somewhere in the US or somewhere quick that I can come back for Monday office. But I think the technology piece that I was working on in the past helped me a lot on what I'm doing right now. Because before I was like, it's just technology, it's tech, I'm a project manager, work with developers and corporations. So it was kind of the, how do I get out of the system, right? Like I was like dependent on that paycheck. It was good. I had my network here in Chicago. It was pretty big in every aspect. I created my first media agency, photography and video agency when I was 25. because I was always kind of had the bug of like, okay, I have my full-time job, but what am I doing, I mean, extra time. So what am I supposed to do with nights and weekends? And my dad was an entrepreneur as well. He was in corporate, but he loved investing in real estate since I was little. And I didn't understand what he was, saying to us. So we were like maybe 12 or 10 or 12 when he would sit us down and be like, hey, should I buy this building or that building? I'm like, I don't know. And he will do the math with us. And I had zero idea. Like, I don't know what it is. This one. And then he's like, okay. So it was interesting being part of the decision. My dad was not a millionaire, but he will work on his, like his same side gig. Like, so I grew up with that, infusion of, okay, so you have your 9 to 5, but what do you do on your free time? Because I think what we do with our says so much of where we're gonna head to. So yeah, it was kind of like inspiring since I was little. He did investments in Peru, and then I saw his investment going like double the price, and I had no idea. I didn't understand much, but I was like, well, if it's double, it's a good deal, right? So then we kind of like he'll walk us through the process of what is buying, pre-sale before it gets built. It's in a project, is the risk you take, but it can also not get built, and then you can lose all your money. And Peru was not stable, like to trust everybody there, but it was kind of a good like initiation into what I do right now. That I didn't know I would end up here in the space of real estate full time. Now that I transitioned to this. It's been like 2-3 years since 2020, and I didn't know I would just quit corporate and do this what I love full time. That I it came from way back then, and I had to pull it back. I'm like, oh, I knew about this from when I was little, but I didn't pay attention to it. So now just kind of that's where I am.
It's interesting how sometimes things in our life I say come full circle, right? We do it, or we know, or we're aware, and maybe we're into it for a bit and then we were not, or it was always kind of there and we weren't really into it, and then it comes back around. It's like, oh, I remember from years ago doing things or learning things. So I say things kind of come around full circle. So before we get into a little bit of what you do, because I do want to talk about that because it's really important. So I know that you do spend your time now between Chicago and Mexico. Is that correct?
Yes. So yeah, Riviera Maya.
Okay. And so for a lot of people, let's talk just briefly a little bit about the quality of life differences and cost of living differences between the two.
That's my favorite topic, and that's why I'm so excited to do what I do. And that gave me the strength to just be like, I want to do this full time because we can change people's lives. And maybe I didn't realize, why I should leave a big city, and nobody would convince me otherwise, right? When I was in my 20s, they're like, yeah, you should be there. It's the best city in the US, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, there's no reason, right? And until you get uncomfortable, you're not moving from where you are. And at least I didn't move from where I was. It was comfortable. And then it became uncomfortable with the pandemic. So the reason we went to Mexico to start with, and cost of living, especially because when I saw my numbers in the US, I will work my ass off sometimes to pay my bills. And my bills will include my mom's caregiver. And my mom had a stroke since 2009, and she couldn't walk after that. So here we are in 2020, 10 years later, and she has no help from the government. So I'm paying the caregiver out of pocket, at least $3,000 a month. So I'm working all this much to pay all this much, not only my bills and everything, but it's the caregiver. And I was like, I'm like spinning my wheels. I mean, like, I don't know what else to do. I don't know where else to go for money. I mean, like, I'm going up in my ladder, in the corporate ladder, like maybe 3 to 4% a year increase. And then I have to justify the 3%. I'm like, okay. And then with the taxes, it goes down again. I'm like, okay, why did I work so much to come down again? So I found myself in like this middle point, and I was spinning my wheels. It's like, okay, pandemic. I mean, like, we couldn't have anybody coming into the house, and it was insane for my sister and I. So it was just my sister and I taking care of my mom, working full time. Being stuck in our condo was a 3-bed, 2-bath in the city, and it's big enough for the city, but it's very small for 1 year of living.
Right, right.
And I didn't have my expense for the caregiver, but I was burnt out. So then we decided to take a break, to go to Mexico to see what happened. You couldn't travel back then. We're like, we're gonna cover my mom, like, we just to leave here right now. And I didn't I wasn't expecting to see what I found, somewhere else. And then that was when we had the realization that you can breathe here. We ended up in Acumal, which is between Playa del Carmen and Tulum, right in the middle.
Mhm.
It's where most of the turtles come to lay their eggs. So
Oh, nice.
it's an amazing scene to just watch. And
Mhm.
watching those moments of like pause and calmness, I wanted to cry. I was like, oh my God, how did I miss all my life? And because I'm hustling, making 100 to spend 99 and
Mhm.
everything. And then here, our caregiver at that point was like a fraction of what I was paying in the US, of course. US labor is very expensive. So I think my caregiver will come happily to work for $600 a month. And the minimum wage in Mexico is 300. So if you give them double, they're super happy. And even then, you don't have to do anything, just hang out with my mom. But she
Mhm.
and working above and beyond. And I didn't understand. I was like, mommy, I should raise, I don't know how to feel, because sometimes when you're used to being helped by somebody else in the house, it's hard to take it in, right? Like you were
Right.
like, I don't know how to say it, but justify, like, make up for it, because
Mhm.
sometimes I cannot receive. That's my issue that I'm still working on. But the receiving part of things was very hard for me, and I realized that then. And then I start receiving more, from nature, from the beach, from the pause of like, my mom is okay, now we can take a break. We can do a mini trip down the street, like it's not like we're always, she's gonna fall. And all these little things that I didn't know I had. And then when I, had the, experienced all this, I was like, how did I live my life like in this stress zone? And I could have just explored a little bit more until and the pandemic kind of flipped the switch, and it's like, no, this is the life I want to live now, and I don't see my life any other way. So I came back to Chicago mostly to wrap up some things, excuse me. I still have some rentals, and I do Airbnb investments, and I run them. So it was kind of like, how do I compress all that to the minimum of that I don't have to be
Mm.
here, outsource a lot, and have people that can take care of property management. At that point, I was doing everything, like from the buying, fixing, renting, and I was getting, like, I was gonna lose my mind. And that's on top of my full-time job. So I was
Wow. Wow.
pay all that extra money. So there's, and not even taxes. Less if we
Mm.
talk about taxes, we're like, I'm losing my mind, because my property taxes here is like a rent almost. Like, you pay, maybe some people pay 1,000 per month just in property taxes. And that's kind of a rent and all your expenses when you live in a different country. And then
Right.
I was like, why people do this? And then as I was changing my mindset, I
Mhm.
understood that life is not that difficult. We make it difficult. I made it difficult for myself because I didn't see any other way. So my property taxes in Mexico are $200 a year, and it's same size of my condo here, 7,000 a year. So I was like, 200 or 7,000? I'm like, I'm moving out of
Big difference.
here.
It's a
And
big difference.
then, with the pandemic happening, all the, influx of money coming into out of the system, and then it has to come back into the system. The properties are the ones that suffer the most, the property owners.
Mm.
So they know that you cannot leave. You're tied up to that system. So it's not like you can take out your house and leave to Mexico. It's like they know they got you. So that's where they
Right.
took the most money from. I was like, this doesn't make no sense. So I turned my units that I lived at in full Airbnb. So I'm like, if you pay
Okay.
yourself, it justifies the tax, but I don't want to pay tax out of pocket to keep a place
Right.
and live at. So yeah, I kind of like shrink all my expenses, like very minimalistic, shrink everything to like one condo that we live right, like one come here to Chicago, like we have everything here. Yeah, so I'll stop as we transition to other places. But Mexico, like the mindset was kind of like really realizing that there is more to life than just working and then working for money and spending almost 90% of your money on living expenses.
Yeah, it's really interesting when people start to look into moving abroad and not just travel, because when you're traveling and you're on vacation, you're renting an Airbnb, you're staying at hotels, you're paying like tourist prices. You pay more than what locals pay for everything. So once you really start to look at things from a local perspective and away from the tourism stuff, it's incredible how much cheaper things are abroad. I mean, it's just a very small condo in Montenegro. And my I got a utility bill. And this is going to sound really bad, but I've been gone for several months. And here again, it's not like North America where if you have to pay every month or in 3 months they're going to disconnect your services. Like they don't do that here. So I haven't paid my electricity. I just got a bill today because I've been waiting for it, and I've been gone for several months. So I haven't paid in almost a year. And so people are probably thinking, "Oh my gosh, it's crazy." And it is a little bit, but it's fairly normal here. Like people pay. I was talking to a guy and he said, "Oh yeah, I know a guy who hasn't paid in like 6 years." I'm like, okay, that's a little bit long. But I usually pay about every 6 months, just to go in and pay it. But my bill for electricity, now I have been gone, a lot, and it was, I want to say like 65 euro for a year. And I was here for part of it, not, and like it's so cheap. And as you said, with taxes, I think here, because this is my second year here, and I haven't had a tax bill yet, but I think it's very similar, the same. It's 100, 200 euro for the year. My monthly, what we'd call condo fees or HOA, is under 10 US dollars a month. And my place is clean all the time. Like not like the common areas in the building and everything. So when when I'm gone for months, people in North America and back home in Canada say, "Well, are you renting your place? You're going to be gone for 6 months." And I said, "No." They're like, "Why not?" I'm like, "Because it costs me like, I don't know, $50, not even, like way less than $50 a month to maintain. So I don't need to rent it." And like the cost is so low. And I think a lot of times people don't realize that, because the cost, like when I look at pricing in Canada of houses and just the HOA, as you said, $1,000 or sometimes more, sometimes a little bit less. Um, Property taxes, everything, like that's way more than you could get for a renting, like a beautiful ocean view, 3 bedroom, brand new place here would be less than the taxes and HOA fees and things that, not even including mortgage or anything else. So it is pretty incredible with the price difference.
Yeah.
But a big question that I know some people say, because of the media, and I'm not a fan of the media because they like their scare tactics and keep everybody in fear, but Mexico isn't safe. So how do you answer that when people are like, "Oh, you go to Mexico? Like Mexico's not safe. That's bad. That's where all the criminals come from."
Well, I love that question because I laugh at it. I mean, I cannot laugh at it, but I mean, like, I understand saying that from a point of innocence that you maybe
Mhm.
don't understand. And the media's job is to create that fear and that stress level to keep people just with that low vibration energy. And to me, I believe on energy so much. And if I feel that like somebody's trying to poke me to get me to react, I had to identify or take a minute to be like, okay, is this like a trigger that is my own trigger, or is like some outside trigger that is trying to make me do whatever they want me to do? So to me, the media is interesting because they have their agenda. They're doing the, so it's a choice to plug into that, how do you call it, rhetoric, like to that.
The rhetoric, yeah. Or I call it propaganda, but people don't like it when I call it propaganda. But I'm like, every country has propaganda. Russia's got propaganda, Ukraine's got Canada, the United States, like every country has their own propaganda.
Yeah, they want to keep people within, right? Like they want you to
Right.
live in these taxes. If you realize how different your life is from where you are right now, let's say Chicago, to where you can be, and you don't know that until you're like, I'm okay going through some fear of not knowing, but you know what, I'm gonna do it anyways. And whatever happens, happens. Life is short. Rather live a good life, a short good life, or if people want to imply the fear, or like I don't want to be a miserable long life. Like I still don't know. I want to see what's out there. It's like stepping out of your comfort zone and be like, well, despite what you're telling, me, media, or people around me, I'm still gonna do it because I mean, what's the worst that can happen? I'll still, I don't want to stay here, or at least I want to explore. I'm very like, so those things didn't really get to me. I'm like, okay, I don't care. I mean, like, there are more shootings in Chicago right now than in Mexico, where I live. So I'm like, who's really in danger right now? Like, I see more danger going to the mall here in Chicago than being chilling by the beach. I mean, like, nobody cares what you're doing by the beach. Nobody's gonna come to you to, like, to shoot you in the beach. They're like, like people have here guns. So I don't know if
Right.
that itself is maybe a red flag. Like, where should you be fearful if you want to follow the propaganda? Where should you be like, afraid for your life? If I go to the mall, I'll be like, I have more risks that to getting shot than going to Cancun or, Tulum. Because when something happens there, it gets amplified so much, and it can be like a
Yes.
one-off, right? One-off. And I cannot say that I don't see it, I don't live it. I mean, I cannot ignore it, but I'm not in the places that they might be. There might be some areas like in different states, like Chicago. Sometimes you don't go to certain areas because so it's kind of like preventing that. And I'm not saying that it never happens, but just make sure, like what I say to my clients is like, make sure that you understand the cases that you're counting, like this 1,000 versus 2, and this is a dangerous one, right? I'm like, okay, why don't you go there and check it out? Nothing has happened to me. I haven't felt a risk in anywhere I've been. I've been through all the peninsula, Riviera Maya, and Merida. And Merida is one of the safest cities in Latin America. And when I'm there, I'm like, people are crazy for thinking that Mexico is dangerous. There might be some areas by the border, but right here, right now, where I am, my mom is safe. I can walk with her in the street. I can, pull her wheelchair. It's accessible in most areas for like, the sidewalks and everything. But I feel safer there than sometimes in Chicago. So the fear factor is a game to me, like, to most people. If they want to buy into the propaganda or the fear media will, ignite in you, that's okay. Like, that's the life you're choosing to live in fear. But if people get out of the comfort zone and into the adventure, there's so many things outside these boundaries that, that is like crazy, like day and night sometimes. And when you realize that, I'm like, I should have done this before. I mean, like, how long? Why did I wait so long?
Everyone says that. Everyone I talk to, they said that they're always, by the time they do, and they go, why did I wait so long? I should have done this earlier.
Yeah, and waiting until retirement age is crazy because there's so much remote work right now. There's so many ways to make money anywhere you are. The world is a global place today versus 20 years ago, right? Like today is possible.
Mm-hmm.
I can work from anywhere, and I kind of build my life into that pattern of like, if I want to go here, I'm gonna make the way there. So I have to just figure out how, because if I can make money here, I can make money anywhere. It's just like I think I put my mindset and be like, okay, if I want to make this happen, okay, I need this, and then put a plan together and just do it. But it's a choice, and then a little tiny jump into the risk of the adventure, because I think my coach is telling me, anxiety and excitement are the same feeling. It's just you choose where you take it, like the negative side or the positive. So instead of being I'm anxious, I'm gonna be like I'm excited, and it's the same feeling of like that, like. So then you kind of take us in a different direction that the anxiety that some people can feel, especially in big cities.
It's true. And it's interesting because I heard that saying not that long ago. I'll say probably within the last maybe 6 months, maybe not even that long, that anxiety or nervousness and excitement are the exact same thing physically that's going on within our body. The only difference is when we're anxious or nervous, we're expecting a negative outcome. And when we're excited, we're expecting a positive outcome. So it is our mindset as to which way or what we're thinking that the outcome may be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and
It's very interesting.
we can rewrite our life that way. We can
Mm-hmm.
thinking our thoughts that way, and your whole perspective. I think the more people are like now open to hear what's in the other side. Like, oh my god, I'm stepping out of the boundaries. I'm gonna get electrocuted. So it's like that feeling of, and I do try to do a good job of sharing our lifestyle in a way, because to me it's very impactful. It impacted me so much to have my mom in a better place, because she sees the sun. She's by the, I can take her anytime to the beach. She has a pool where they are right now because she's taken care of 24/7. I pay a fraction of the price right now. I can come and go to Mexico a lot, and it's not like if I put her in a nursing home in Chicago, which is, when I see some, I'm like, how come people live here is miserable? People come here to die. And right now, where my mom is, she's in a resort, like, in the tropical weather. And whether I'm there or not full time, I know she's taken care of. So I'm like, yeah, that's what I want for my mom. And I mean, like, if you love your parents, you want the best for them, right? Like this
Of course.
is kind of my why, and why I do things, and why I'm working so hard to make sure that I can facilitate a life that, my sister, my mom, and I kind of like sustain. And
Mm.
and when I share some of my experiences there, from the service to the people that take care of my mom, the heart sometimes that they do it from their heart, not for the money. I mean, money is really,
Mm.
but it's different. Like I feel like here everybody's struggling. In the US, people are struggling so much that you have to work for the money, no matter where it comes from, no matter how, you know, like. And then the love, we forget about love, and because we're in a rush. Well, in
Right.
Mexico, I feel my mom is like taken care of. If she's like feeling a little down, they're asking her, is everything okay? So because it's not about the time, I'm counting how many hours I'm gonna be here. It's more like she's gonna be here no matter what. So let's make sure she's taken care of, or we pay attention to her feelings. And then when I'm down there with my sister, we like try to document almost everything, because I'm like, oh, look at this beach. You can be here too, because why wouldn't you want to be somewhere else? It's snowing in Chicago. Maybe you want to explore a little bit of the experience of outside of that comfort zone. And like you mentioned, coming to Mexico as a vacation, in vacation mode, is totally different than when we're there. Our bills are so cheap. We bought our condo and paid it off in 2 years. So it's like in the US, I'm like still paying for 30 years my condo, which is okay. It's an investment for me. But over there, we're, a fraction of the price, pay it off.
Mhm.
There's no stress about, oh my God, where's my next paycheck going to come from so I can pay for my mortgage? No, it's paid off. We're good. So
Right. And then if things happen even with work or something like that, there's not that stress of, oh no, I've just lost my job or I lost some clients or anything like that. And there is definitely a great feeling of knowing kind of that no matter what, this place is paid for and I'll be okay. And I find too the big difference between countries a lot like North America is it really is, as you said, that money driven. It's all about money. And I get it to a degree. I mean, we need to make so much money. Things are getting ridiculously expensive in North America. I was in Canada for several months and I just couldn't even believe the prices of stuff. Like it's just insane. And so I understand people need to be making a lot of money just to get by, but it's nice when there isn't that need for as much money and there isn't that such kind of like in your face where you need to buy stuff to make yourself happy, to make you the envy of your neighborhood or those types of things. Where other countries, they're like, yeah, we make money, but we make what we need. We don't need a lot of things. There aren't the commercials of buy stuff, buy. And don't worry, if you don't have it, don't have money for it. Visa's got you covered because that makes sense to go into debt to buy something that's going to cost you 20% more per year and they just are happier with less
yeah,
because it's proven that like material things don't make us happy.
I think 100% agree. It's like experience based instead of
Mhm.
real based. And maybe we don't get to that point until later on in our lives, and we don't get it right. My 20s were very like a blur, like work, study, make money, and then my mom got sick, and I'm like, oh, then I have to figure that out too. So I didn't have a life in my 20s. I'm 39 now, and I feel like I'm so glad that everything happened like for crazy for a reason at the beginning, because now I'm like,
Mhm.
oh my God, I can float. Because if this happened right now, perhaps I wouldn't be prepared. Because
Right.
to me, it's like no, not calling failing, but fail fast, learn fast, move on, next lesson. But if I'm gonna sit
Mhm.
in a lesson for so long, and and then that's what I say, like my life happened for a reason in this way. That was like a pressure cooker in my 20s to just be an
Mhm.
execution and just finding a solution for peace. I feel internal peace in my 30s. And I think right now what I'm working towards is how can I live a life of retirement without being retired? And having that peace and quiet if the place is paid off. I mean, I would have to make $4,000, $5,000 a month. It's more like if we make 500 between my sister and I, which is very possible. I can't even be a waitress for $500 a month. But I mean, of course, we want to aim higher. But even that fixed cost is like that peace of mind that I
Mhm.
didn't have. Like even that, you know, settle, being settled and being being comfortable and not needing that much and buying to show off to people you don't even like. So it's like, why will I do that? Like, if I don't even like them, why am I sharing or showing off? I found a big difference when I moved to Mexico. And I spent there like 6 months a year almost, coming and going for also. I mean, summer is really hot, but I don't mind the heat. But winter I do spend between US and Europe for what I work, for my work. But that's why I get the best of both worlds. I can plug into Chicago. I love Chicago still. Like, it's a big, beautiful city. I plug in, meet my team, meet my neighbors, meet my clients, and I keep the network, and then I leave. And they're, oh, you're leaving so again? I'm like, yeah, you should come too. And little by little, people are like, you know what? I'm coming.
Oh, good. That's
And
nice.
like to visit, and some of my realtors in my team, I'm like, you should come just to check it out, and don't stay in a resort. Come and stay with me, so you can experience, the everyday, like what do we do, how do we do grocery shopping in the area, and how the logistics. So last year, I had a group of maybe 6 people that came through a couple months, like every 2 weeks you had somebody new. But to me, it was kind of changing the mindset and the perspective that how, I mean, the initial intention was like, hey, you explore this area so you can recommend it to your clients and maybe send some referrals this way. And when they came, they're like, I want to live here. I tell my clients too, but I want to get a little piece of this paradise if I can, and they didn't know how. So that's when we started the process on the teaching the how. So just I think it starts with very little. We cannot change the whole world, in one take, but we can change one person's lives at a time. And to me, this is very important to just put a little seed in somebody to be like, hey, you see, friend, and now that you're here, they want to come back now this year, and I'm getting ready for 3 months to be, taking more guests, people, team members, and because I think it starts with me. If I have the space, I can host somebody. That sharing of that lifestyle, because they don't want to come on their own, and they don't want to go and be alone in one area. But if somebody already kind of planted the flag, it's like, hey, anybody, we're in this area, and then we're building a community, sometimes with expats, locals, people from around the world. And it starts with one person, and then as people see the lifestyle, they can see the difference of day and night. They're like, you know what? And I have many of my friends that are realtors that bought next to me, bought land. They're like, I don't want to build right now. I don't know how to do it, but I trust you. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, what isn't it? I mean, I don't see my long-term goal is like see our community there, that we have like our mindset, or that we stand for the same values, and when I breathe air, not stress. And I think every human being should have the right to do that, but unfortunately we don't, because we don't know. And then we don't want to take the risk either. So it's hard I'm not trying to transform the world, but just one person at a time who wants to experience life in a different way. I'm like, oh, let me show you. Like,
and I'm the same way with that as well. And I agree. I mean, there's that old saying, what is it? You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So we can tell people, and if they don't want to, they just don't want to. But sometimes it's planting that seed, or if it's, well, this is where I am. If you want to come visit me, come see me, like I'm doing great, come and I can show you around. And that a lot of times just that little bit helps, because we're like, oh, well, she's there, she's doing it, she's traveling back and forth, or whatever, has moved there, or whatever the person's situation may be. And once other people start to come, they start to see the reality of it, what real life is like, what's going on in that city or that neighborhood more specifically. And then it goes from there. And sometimes it's not going to be for everyone. And that's great. But even sometimes too, when people just come and they visit and they see, and it changes that perspective. And that has a ripple effect to people that we don't even know, because somebody comes to visit me, or they come to visit you, or for one of the listeners, if they've already moved abroad and they have a family member or a friend or somebody, and they come to visit, and then they see what the place is like. When they go back home, people ask, oh, how was it? Right. And then it spreads that, and it has that ripple effect that we truly have no idea how far those ripples ever go. And then from there, of those people who hear about it then go to that place, and again it continues. So it is important, I think, to plant seeds to help people to kind of sometimes hold that hand, because the biggest fear is the unknown, right?
Yeah.
Like what if it's bad? What if it's terrible? What if something bad happens? And our brain, it's good in so many ways because it wants to protect us, right? The
Mhm.
brain is like, don't do that. Like, we want to live, we want to protect you. We don't want bad things to happen, which is great to a degree, but then it also hinders us from doing so many wonderful and great things because it makes us scared to do things. And then after, as you said earlier, so many people, why didn't I do this sooner?
Mhm. And the funny thing is that people think they need millions of dollars to do this.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, mm-mm. I'm a regular person in the US, middle class, no, I'm not a millionaire. And my career paid really well, but right now I'm independent. And if I'm able to do that, with a salary that is pretty normal, not above 200,000, it's not like I don't have to be rich to do this, first
Hmm.
of all. Maybe because we see it on TV that only the rich people have their vacation homes by the water. I'm like, oh, I'm not rich, so I cannot do it. I think wrong. You can do it because first, it's not the money. It's like if you want to do it, you want to make it happen. So it has to be like a choice. So first start with like, if you believe you can do it, you can do it, and you find a way to do it. Because if that's a goal, you're gonna do everything that you can to do that to reach that goal. And many people are like, but how do you do it? Like you have your place here in Chicago, now you have a place in Mexico, and how much money do you make? I'm like, well, maybe about the same money that you do, probably, but I just kind of repurpose it in a different way, because it's not about the money that you make, it's how you spend it, that I think makes the biggest.
Absolutely.
So if people are spending it ridiculously in little things that don't matter, but maybe you're missing out that opportunity that maybe $500 a month can get you somewhere in 4 to 5 years. So if you're like draining $500 already, you can put that towards, your future home, and then just put a little savings and starts with that. And the intention and the know-how, of course, before you spend all your money into something that is abroad, you have to have the right team, the right people that you trust to do those steps, because it's money, your hard-earned money, can also be, because the
Of
risks are there too. For other countries, you have to be very careful where you
course.
go. But it's mostly about the compliance and being with a good team. If you're with the right team that protects your interest, you're good. But if you're gonna go with a random person in the street that is a real estate agent that you don't know them personally, it might be a little hard to trust them, and maybe your money might not go fully to whatever you want it to go. So that's the risk, is just finding the right resources and the right channels, and then make the decision that you want to do it, and the rest is going to fall into place, because it's just the intention. So yeah, I'm not a millionaire, full disclosure. I'm okay. I work for my money, and I work every day for what we have right now, and it's not expensive. I think if anything, it's cheaper. If I work for dollars and I spend in pesos, so I'm like, why would I earn dollars and spend in dollars? I don't think it makes sense.
Right. That and no, that makes sense. I mean, we really have to think, let's be honest, people waste a lot of money. Now, there are some people that don't, but generally speaking, a lot of people do waste a lot of money. Like, we have to think about need versus want. What we need is not even close to what we want. But we'll
Mhm.
say need, oh, I need a new pair of shoes. Do you really? Like, do you really? Or, oh, I need to go get coffee, whether it's Starbucks or McDonald's coffee or eating out. I mean, I don't, yeah, fast food is not even cheap anymore, and it's like, what need versus want, that's completely different. I'm not saying don't ever treat yourself, but you have to think about, like, what are your goals? If you want a second property or to relocate to another country that's less expensive, what do you truly need versus what you want? And then again, when you get to that country, you're looking at property. It doesn't matter how much money you have, there's always going to be something that's nicer, bigger, and better. So whether you buy a place for, let's say if you find something, maybe a small one bedroom or something for $75,000, I don't know if that's possible there, 100,000, like whatever that number mark is, it doesn't matter because there's always 150. There's always a million. There's always 2 million. There's 10 million. There's like, it doesn't matter. So it has to be really, what do you need versus what do you want? And then, as you said, like, there's a way, it's spending. How are we allocating that money? what are we spending it on? Because what we're spending it on, that's what we want. And if you really want a different lifestyle, a different home to live in a different place, I always say to everybody, when there's a will, there's a way. But it just depends if there's a will. It's the same thing of many people at some point in our life have always said, oh, I'd like to lose 5 pounds. Okay. Yeah, you would like to, but not so much that you're going to actually go to the gym and not eat chocolate cake and do what you need to do to have it. So yeah, I get it a lot too. Oh, it would be nice to, I would like to travel abroad. I would like to move abroad. I would like to do this. And I'm like, well, then do it. Oh, well, I have a job. So do I. Oh, well, I have kids. Yep. So did I. When I first moved, my daughter was a teenager. Oh, well, I'm like, yes, I run my own company. Yes, I am an employee. I'll have to leave that job. I'm like, and I'm like, and then there's no more excuses.
Yeah, I think it starts with a transition, right? You don't have to jump cold turkey, like they said.
Right.
Like if you have to make a decision, you can make a plan for 4 years, maybe, until your kids are from ages to college. But if you don't start now, you're never gonna start. And when you start like later on, then you're like, oh no, then this like excuses, right? Like we're gonna keep pushing the timeline.
There's always something.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
I've talked to people, it's like, oh, well, I'll wait till the kids are in college and then they go, but maybe the one's still a local college or university still living at home, or oh, and then all of a sudden now there's grandkids, and oh, now my parents are getting to, oh, now, like, and not that those aren't reasons, like they are, but they're also excuses. Like
Yeah.
there's millions of people who have moved around the world who have businesses, who have kids, who have family, and we all have family somewhere. Now, whether we talk to them or not, and how much, that varies too. We all have friends in our home countries. Like we have those things, and it just depends. Like a person really needs to be honest with themselves. What do they want? What is their priorities in life? And realize, would that be a nice to have if it was easy and served to me on a silver platter? Or is this what I want? And I'm willing to start the process now, even though I know it's something I want in 3 years, 5 years down the road, or sooner if that's what it is, and have a plan and take those steps and realize just because you get one place now, you're not stuck in that place or that country for that matter. You could just buy something smaller and say, okay, well, at least I have this. And then when I'm there, if I'm still making a similar wage, if you're self-employed, then I'm saving so much money that in 3 years or 5 years, perhaps I can buy something bigger, nicer, or another place, whatever it may be.
Yeah. I feel like I mean, I love my people in the US, but I feel like they don't. I mean, like we live in a bubble here, right? And it's a bubble for what it is. There's also poverty, but not to the extent that other countries have. But I hear some parents that my kids are at school, and I'm like, what makes you think there are no schools in other countries? Like,
and some of them might be better schools. Just
yeah.
saying.
From experience, I'll share that when I shift from the US, from Peru education to the US education, I feel like I was in college level and I was maybe coming out of high school. Like the intensity that Peruvians, my high school had, I think was college level, and I was in high school. For the math and all the things that they were requiring from us, I was like, I came to the US and it was a breeze to go to school. It was very easy. And the math, I was like, I think I did this in like when I was in high school, but I did it anyways. But university here was very easy for me in the US because I came from like I'm very competitive high school. So it doesn't mean that there are no high schools out there. There's no elementary schools. My friend moved from LA to Playa with her daughter, and I think she's 6 or 7. And she goes to a school like in the same community that she's in, and it's I think American/Mexican school, so English is spoken. So she didn't feel that drop, and she can make friends from other places, and the diversity and the richness that kids have abroad, it cannot be replaced from a US suburb. Like, it's too protected. You're seeing a cookie cutter approach education that has no diversity much, maybe just a little bit. It depends on each school. So if that's a goal for your, how you want to raise your kids, that's perfectly fine. But sometimes thinking outside the box, having your kids seeing more of the world will make that kid a stronger person, a leader where they are, and versus just being one more, in my opinion. but I don't have kids like to share with you like, oh, this should be this or that way. But I see my friends with kids moving and they love it because first of all, they have a nanny. And in the US that you cannot have a nanny that is working full time because you have to work extra for your nanny. So they have a life too. So my girlfriend is single. So her daughter stays with the nanny and she can just live her life freely instead of like struggling. Let's say Chicago, LA, New York, in those big cities that you have to pay a nanny for 2 hours and you have to run to your, let's say, to your date, come back. Oh my God, my nanny's leaving. And I'm like, what kind of life is that? Like, if my child is taken care of, then I can live my life fully as a parent, single parent, married parent, and maybe the couple, if they're a couple, they have more time to breathe because you have help in the house, helping you with the kids, maybe the laundry, the little things that I didn't see this until I went to India and Morocco this year. And even though in Peru we grew up with some help in the house, in the US I totally don't even consider having help in the house unless it's only for my mom. When I went to India and Dubai, India and Morocco, they have service in the house. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And I love this experience because, back in the US, we can't have that. And they're middle class, not rich, wealthy people, but they're helping another family pay for their bills too, because the lady who works in the house you're helping them to create that economy. And then it's like, yeah, they may be just your cook or your maid, but you're helping their family also grow. And if we don't think it that way, it's hard to be like, oh no, I don't need anybody to help me in the house because I can do everything and I'm Superwoman. And
Oh, yes.
and I was like, well, I became a Superwoman in Morocco because when I stayed there for a month, my friend's parents' house, they had two maids and a cook. And I was like, oh my God. And I was trying always to help and make up for my time. And then of course, I don't want people to serve me, but they were so happy to help me. And I was able to just work like 16 hours a day because I had to work on meal preparation. I didn't have to do laundry. I didn't have to get out of my time. Like I was full focus. I was like, took a break downstairs, hang out with them, talk about life on my Google Translator, and then come back to my work. And then when I lived that life for a month, I'm like, oh my God, I need to implement this in the next place that I go. And in Mexico, we're going to because my mom is kind of our own, is like my child. So I provide for her. So when she's home, I do have that person to take care of her. So is that breath? I just don't even understand how people don't see it. I mean, at least I felt it this summer. Like I felt very loved. I was like, they genuinely want to help me with my meal or help me with my clothes or my laundry, or they want to make sure my room is clean. And my room is always clean, but they still clean it. I was like, thank you. Like that appreciation. And I'm like, I feel so lucky right now. Like this experience cannot be translated to words, and it cannot be translated to how we live in the US in the rat race because we cannot breathe enough. We cannot breathe to live there. So I was like,
Right.
if they understand the breath of fresh air of time, freedom, it's like, wow, I will change my life like right now.
It's true. And I think sometimes, I mean, a bad thing is kind of, as you said, I can do it all. Yes, we can. I can do it all. Absolutely. Do I want to? No, I'm done doing it all. Like I've proved that point for many, many years. I'm tired of it. But a lot of times too, like you said, people may not realize, and it is different because expense in North America, Canada, and the US is more expensive to have somebody come in and help clean and cook and things like that. But you're right that when we look at other countries, it is more feasible that we can afford to do it. And we are helping more because, like you said, those families that are there during the day helping, doing cooking, cleaning, laundry, whatever else, then because I had a lady come in a couple times a week when I was living in Costa Rica, and it was great. She would cook, she would clean, she would take care of things, and I would work. It gave me more time to work. So I didn't have to do the cooking and cleaning. So I could work. And so I was making money while she was doing that. And then, of course, paying her helped her family buy food and pay their bills and live and everything like that too. So a lot of times we need to see it as more um, of a cycle type thing, like what we get. So I'm working, great, I'm making money. If I can have other people do things that help me, great, but I also help them by paying them for that. And it's a continuation of flow because then it helps them, it helps their kids when they buy groceries, whatever store they're buying their own personal things for. And it really does spread out around the community instead of just, oh, I don't want to pay somebody to do that. I can just do it myself. Yes, we can do everything ourselves, but then we also have to look at the time. We
Yeah.
only have so many hours in a day, so many days in our life, and we don't know how many we have. But then also it's the money as well. Okay, can I make more money than it costs me to do that task? Or how much more freedom do I have of going for a walk, going to the gym, going out on a date? Because as you said with your friend, if she goes out on a date and she's happier, like a date with the girls for lunch, like whatever it may be, and she comes home and she's happy and in a good mood and things are good, she's a better mom. And when couples are parents and they go out and they have time to spend together and they can do things together away from the kids in the house and things like that, they're happier together, they're better parents.
Yeah. That pause is like meditation, right? Like that, taking that time off to come back
Mm-hmm.
more strength, and then I think that vibration of being happier and making your kids happier, or your spouse or yourself, is just like something we take for granted, because I feel in the US we feel we don't deserve it, or it's too much, or it's a stigma to have that, or it's reserved for the rich. So I think we can have a rich life without having a rich wallet. Although money in the bank helps, you can have a rich life right now. And I think that's why I share with everybody, like, I live a full rich life and I love it. Like, I wouldn't change my life for anything. And even though it's been really hard, now I know what hard is, so I don't want that. So
Well,
because
you
of,
have to know it to appreciate the better. Like I think we can't appreciate happy if we don't know sad,
yeah, exactly, the duality,
right?
right?
So, yeah.
It's,
But I'd rather be way more happy and have only a few sad moments.
yeah.
But that is life. I mean, life has hard moments and stuff. So let's talk a little bit about what you do and how you help people.
I forgot. I swear. Well, what I do is, I try to impact people's lives through real estate, and it doesn't mean at one place. Mexico is my example because I live it and breathe it every year. But I'm a, like you, we're kind of in the same field. We do consulting for clients to think outside the box and explore other countries for real estate. In my case, my company is called Unicorn Properties, as you mentioned, and we're affiliated to EXP, which is our kind of back office. And EXP is global, and we can operate in 24 countries, which I can share later, or you can see in our social media. And our network is, like you said, is almost 90,000 agents. So we can find a property for our clients anywhere they decide to be. So it can be Mexico, Colombia, Spain, Portugal, whatever it is. Like, oh, I'm curious. And then we start the process of the curiosity and see, like, how is your life right now? What can you allocate as a spare budget, perhaps? And then work towards the life that you want to have. If you're not, I mean, like, if you're happy, you can always be happier. But if you want that, that curiosity is like, staying like childlike mode of exploring,
Mhm.
experimenting. So I like try to aim for locations that are more eco-friendly or with more nature, whatever nature means for that person: beach, mountains, forest, whatever. That's a preference. To me, is beach 100% of the time.
Me too.
My sister is more like, I love the mountains, I love hiking. I mean, I can't do that and I can't.
Oh, see,
Like,
I love that too. I like both. So I like where I'm at because I'm 10-minute walk from the beach, and every time I walk back towards my apartment, I'm surrounded by mountains. So I've got a pretty good spot. It does get still a little bit chilly in the winter, but nothing like Canada cold, so I can't complain.
yes, I love that, because you're doing what you love from where you love it. So it's kind of having that flow of, like, energy and whatever your heart feels, and we translate it to real estate, because we're not just a real estate company. It's more like we want to see what you really, like, love and want, and how we can hold your hand to that path, whatever that is in the world. So just having that curiosity, that's what we do. We poke people's interest, and then to explore more outside of their four walls and outside of their comfort zone sometimes. So we work with mindsets, and we work with real estate. We work with spirituality and
Perfect.
understanding all that, where you come from, what you want, what do you truly want? Because one thing is what you say, and one thing is what you feel. So perhaps it's not connecting. So having this mindset when it comes to real estate is important, because a realtor will just sell you whatever you want, and they don't even know, they don't care. They just want the commission. Next, next, next. For us, it's
You're
more,
spending how much? Okay, you want what on a list? I'll see what I can find you. Oh, yeah, I'll show you things above that price because I'm sure you have more.
yeah. So we don't want to strangle our clients. We go with what they have, what they can spare, and if the direction is where they want to go. so yeah, we help on that process, and it's been real estate our tool, and we do have a lot of technology, AI, and everything integrated for our clients to be, taken care of on the process for the technical part. But we do soft and hard skills, right? Like we work on all our property database, making sure that it's liable and legal friendly, and we work on the spiritual mindset in a way, whether they're spiritual or not, they're religious or not. We just want to hear them as human beings instead of as a client that has a dollar sign in their heads. That's it.
And it's important, as you said, especially with international property, because when you're not in a place very much and we don't know what builders are known to get jobs done and which ones maybe not so much, or they're new, it's their first build, or, the internet is great. And just because it's on the internet doesn't mean that house, apartment, building, complex actually exists. So you can contact them and there will be somebody that's answering that email, message, phone call even, but doesn't necessarily mean that that property is actually there. And so it is very important with international purchases to be working with reputable people and of course, going to visit as much as possible, but understanding there's an expense with that. So just knowing ahead of time, these are reputable people, not just, oh, I saw this on Instagram, or, oh, I saw this ad on Facebook, because anybody can put an ad on any platform, and it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that property is even built. It doesn't mean that the person actually owns the property and has the right to sell it, or anything like that. And then that goes under rentals too. I warn people often, even with Spain, there's several things, and I've seen it, that if they say, oh yeah, things are moving real fast, you need to send your deposit right away. I'm like, that's a scam. It's a scam, because and there have been times where people have actually shown up at a property to show it, and they didn't have the legal right to rent that property to someone else.
I heard that in Spain a lot too. But I'm glad you say that, because we don't want to scare people, but there's those risks. And
I would rather make people a little bit nervous on that end, so they do extra due diligence, than give even $500 as a deposit and it's just gone. Like, I don't want that to happen to people.
yeah, I mean, the US and Canada is super regulated. So we're in trouble. So everything is in the system. Everything is, it has a PIN number. But you step out of those boundaries and you're in the wild, wild west. But not because it is, but because people have made it. We human beings want to take advantage. Our human nature will come into place, a me first selfishness, and I will sell you whatever. But I feel that once you get out of the bubble, North America, be aware that that's possible. Latin America is very common for us in my country. People sell this land to 7 different people that collect the money, and they're like, oh, you guys figure out. and imagine litigating in a country that you don't know the law, you don't know the language, you don't know it just becomes a mess. So just that, level of awareness is really important, working with people like you, like me, in a way to just, we don't want to scam people. We want to make sure that they're safe as much as we can provide, because sometimes we cannot put our hands on fire for a development that we know, but we don't know fully 100%. But that's what I try to work with developers that we know, we validated around in all the countries that I'm in. I physically go there in person to explore, to see, to feel, to breathe, like what's happening. Because then when you're there physically, you can see and read in between the lines. So many of the posts that you see online, it can be somebody in Miami, it can be somebody in Mexico that posts the ads, and then bye-bye, thanks for the deposit. So there's a risk, and at least for me, it's very important to do the homework, not only with our network, but also me going there physically, spend a month in each country to explore deeply, understand fully, and translate that to our clients in whatever, not only the language, but also the terms we use, let's say, in the US versus other countries, how it kind of is equivalent. So that the homework is not easy, and it takes a lot of time. And other people want to save time, they don't want to do the homework, so then the clients will be affected. So for the most part, we try to do, like, with every single person that we work with in our list of developers, validate almost like from A to Z, from the legal part to, if they're owners of that, if they have the rights and they have the permits, because otherwise, if they have everything ready to go, but they don't have the permits, well, your project that was aimed for January 2024 might be January 2025, and you were planning already your move. So very important to keep that in mind.
Well, and I even know of one when I was looking here in Montenegro, and my realtor was showing me a bunch of places, and we drove by, and I'm like, oh, those are nice. Like I knew I wasn't going to look at them, but they were just driving by, and I'm like, oh, those are really nice. The big for sale sign. She's like, yeah, those are probably going to have to be torn down. I said, what? She said, well, they built them without the proper permits. And they were too close to the road, something. She's like, so if anybody buys them, there's a very good chance that it's just going to be ripped down. And there was other ones. She's like, oh yeah, they don't have water. Like, what? She's like, yeah, they were built, but those don't have water, so you don't. And I'm like, okay, well, good things to know. And I mean, and these places were beautiful. Like I didn't see the insides, but outside, like beautiful. And we're talking probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like these were not small, cheap little shacks. These were built beautifully on the outside. Don't know what, like I said, I didn't go on the inside. But yeah, and they were just hoping to, I guess, that it would be, oh, we'll get the permits, oh, we'll get the water, oh, it'll be fine. Like, what is that saying? It's easier to beg for forgiveness than get permission.
Yeah.
Or something. So it's like build it and hopefully they'll grandfather it in and then say it's okay. I don't know what's happened with those, but yeah, and
no, it resonates because I just had a conversation with one of our realtors in Valencia, and he was just saying just that, the road, like that litigation, that it can be grandfathered in, but you don't know. So imagine.
And do you want to take that
and be like, oh shit, bye. You can't, take it down. So
yeah, and then all of a sudden now you're left with nothing, and you've spent
yeah.
tens, hundreds of thousands of euros or dollars. So it is really important for people to be working with reputable companies. So where can people get a hold of you? What's the best way to get in touch with you if they're, kind of, even if they're just curious, they're unsure, or they're thinking, yeah, I want to figure out, I really want something somewhere, or maybe they have a place in mind that they're like, I've narrowed it down and this is the country, or even more specifically, this is the city. How can they get in touch with you?
Social media, and usually I always have my WhatsApp link everywhere I am. So social media, Facebook, Instagram, and we'll happily help, going from the curiosity to the knowledge part. And also, I mean, this is what we do for many of our clients that are in the process of curiosity, and they send us links and, screenshots, and we're like, we'll validate that for you, because we can get into the city and validate that physically we have somebody there. Because see the online world, but then let's make sure that it's a real thing. Because I think one of the times, just to close it, one of my clients from Canada too sent me this screenshot and this like development, and I'm like, let me check it out. We check it out, and the office was in a laundromat they had a laundromat as an office address, and I'm like, sir, you might want to reconsider this search, because they don't have an office, and that might not be, if that starts with that, imagine the problem is coming up later. So we're happy to help with our clients if they're in the curiosity stage, to verify those, to make sure they don't get cited. We can always do some things right, but just work with the right teams. Happy to helping you.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that we put all of those links to your social media in the show notes to make it easy for everybody to get in touch with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was great. And I know the listeners got a lot of valuable information. And I just want to say thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Sally. It was always nice talking to you.